Welcome back to 3-Point Firefighter, the podcast where I have conversations with firefighters all around the country on all things fire service related, especially those three things that I think are the foundation of any good firefighter: pride, training, and physical fitness. I'd like to say hi to those listening in Centennial, Colorado. I would love to have somebody from South Metro on my podcast. Please help me get that done. If you're interested, shoot me an email, and my email will be in the description. Also, follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at 3-Point Firefighter. Today's guest is Deputy Chief Bruce DeArk of Jeffersonville, Indiana. Bruce had been diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. Today, he shares his story about his diagnosis, his treatment, and how he's reaching out to help others with this issue. We talk about prevention, awareness, clean cab, hell, clean everything. You know, you won't be too far into this episode before you realize that he is a fighter, he's a servant, and he's a man of faith. You'll also realize that cancer clearly fucked up trying to attack Bruce DeArk. And with that, Chief Bruce DeArk. Bruce DeArk, brother, thank you for being on my podcast.
Thanks for inviting me.
Well, I like to start every podcast out with, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself, your department, and where you fit in with your department?
My name again is Bruce DeArk. I am Deputy Chief with Jeffersonville Fire Department, Southern Indiana, just north of Louisville. Been on the department 20 years. Love the job. Of course, I think once it's in your blood, it's in your blood. It's kind of a family thing. My uncle was in the business. My cousin is on the department as well. And my dad was one of the original members of the Utica Volunteer Fire Department. It started that back in the 50s. So it's kind of been in my blood for a while.
Okay. Now, I recently had a conversation with Captain Tim Cron, and one of the things that we talked about was if heart attacks don't get you on the fire ground and you're lucky enough to retire, you got one or two things looking for you in the future. One is cancer, and one is maybe some PTSD, some, the things that you've seen and done. Mm-hmm. So today we want to talk about cancer, and particularly, your journey with cancer. And I was kind of hoping you could tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. As you said, it used to be, studies showed that heart attacks were the number one killer of firefighters. And unfortunately, cancer has surpassed that. Cancer is now the number one killer of firefighters. There are quite a few departments in states that are now recognizing that as line of duty, which it should be. I think there's 12 different types of cancer that's a higher risk, starting with testicular is number one. Colon is about number 7. Regardless, any cancer can be getting from all the stuff we breathe in, for sure, over the years. My journey itself started back in 2018. I had beginning of the year, actually late in 17, I had just gotten married, and we were looking forward to lots of adventures coming up. And that was in November of 17. Well, January, I'd gotten sick, got the flu, and was just not feeling real good, called the doctor and was doing the stay at home away from the doctor's office to get really sick, so didn't think much about it. Continued to just not get better. Was very weak, very tired. And about early March, I started getting some severe pains, mid-March, I guess, in my abdomen area, thinking possibly appendicitis. Called the doctor and said, here's what I got. Possibly I'll be in tomorrow. That was on a Friday. And it was St. Patty's Day weekend. And so Monday I went in. Friday, it wasn't that bad. I said, I was coming Monday and we'll check things out. Well, the weekend got worse. It got pretty painful. And went to the doctor Monday morning. They checked me out and they said, let's get some scans, just see where we're at. So in my mind, I'm thinking I'm going to have emergency appendectomy that day. That's what I'm thinking. Went to get a scan. Was there about an hour and a half, I guess, and thought it seemed like it took a little longer than normal. And didn't think much about it. Talked to my wife. She said, you want me to come there? I said, no, there's no reason. It's just a scan. Just be prepared to be in the hospital tonight, possible, appendicitis. And so they said, well, you need to go back to your doctor. So I'm like, well, that's weird, but okay. So went back to the doctor.
They didn't tell you why you should see?
No, they wouldn't tell me. And again, called my wife and said, hey, I'm on my way back to the doctor. I guess they're just going to give me maybe some paperwork to go to the hospital. You want me to come? No reason to, hard-headed. You can do it by yourself. It's the firefighter mentality. You do everything by yourself. And so I go and they take me in a room and they set me on the table and they said, we've got some bad news for you. And I'm like, what kind of bad news could you have? I could have took a million guesses and never would have guessed this. And they said they found some very large masses in your colon and in your abdomen, and it's definitely cancer. And so you sit there and you try to absorb those words, and I have two daughters. I have a 22-year-old now, she's 22, and I have a 17-year-old. So going through my mind is I'm thinking of the girls. How am I going to tell my girls? How am I going to tell my wife? We're just starting out. How am I going to tell her? And so they gave me some more information. I probably didn't hear half of what they said, and gave me the file actually, and said you need to go straight to the hospital, because at that time there was something else going on. There was an infection in me, and so I was going to go to the hospital regardless, so they could get me some antibiotics. They didn't know exactly what at the time, so head to the hospital, called my wife, kind of told her over the phone. But once she got there, I told her, and we were, of course, everybody's shocked. And so they admitted me, started pumping me with antibiotics, and come to find out it was a diverticulitis pain that I had caused by the cancer, because the location of where the cancer was. So I was 49 years old at the time, wasn't scheduled for a colonoscopy until 50, of course, at that time. So got the colonoscopy that day, and that's when they found it. Luckily, it wasn't a complete blockage. It was but it was still bad. They were the size of baseballs. One in my colon and one in my abdomen, with some smaller ones in the lining of my abdomen, the peritoneal lining. So, which is a tough place for chemo to reach when they do that. So from that point, shock is over, and my attitude's always been hit something head on. And so I started that day with my oncologist and said, look, you tell me where we need to go. I'll go wherever in this world. We're going to beat this. This isn't going to get me. I was diagnosed at stage 4 because of the metastasizing to the peritoneal lining. So we have a friend who's she worked at U of L for years as a nurse that studies all kinds of trials. So she worked on it this entire weekend, just to find something where I would go. I was going to go to MD Anderson. I was going to go to, John Hopkins, wherever they told me we were going. And she called me on Sunday evening and said, your best bet is right here in Louisville for what you have. We have one of the best surgeons in the world right here for your type of colon cancer. So that was, God blessed us with that so that we could stay home because I was really stressing about being gone from the kids for a long time, and just family in general. You pick up when you move somewhere. It's kind of tough on a spur of the moment, and you have a life somewhere else. But of course, my life was my first option to do. So we ended up meeting with the surgeon, started some chemo, which they weren't. The chemo was started so that they could shrink the tumors was the goal. So
now, what day? Now, what day is this after that?
This was weekend? I was diagnosed on the 18th of March, and this was by Friday. I had met with the oncologist, and by the following Monday, because again, circles, you run into people, they got me in with this surgeon who normally takes 6 months to get in to see. I was in 8 o'clock Monday morning. I was seeing him. So, wow. And I told my wife, I said, look, we go in here and he doesn't have the right thing we want to see. We're going somewhere else, because I'm going to find the person that's going to fix this. And he come in the door and we hit it off right away. And he looked at me, he said, you look strong, you look healthy, and you look like you're ready to fight. And I said, yes, sir, I am. When do we start? And he said, this can be taken care of with surgery. I really believe it can. So let's get some chemo in you. Again, not thinking that the chemo would work, shrinking all the tumors. In the main area was the peritoneal lining they were concerned with, because they couldn't see all of them. And then there was multiple spots because CTs, and they just don't show everything. Sometimes they have to wait till they get in you to see everything. So we did the chemo. We did 4 rounds of the toughest chemo you can go on. A lot of people have been through it. I'm not saying I'm the best, but it's the toughest stuff I've ever been through. But I never quit working the whole time. I would get tired, but I would come home. I'm 5 minutes from the fire station. I work in my office. I'm fortunate to not have to be on the fire scenes as much anymore as I used to be. Mm-hmm. I still do because I'm hard-headed, but I usually stay in my vehicle, or I try not to breathe the smoke as much as I used to. Right. And so anyway, so I got those 4 rounds done, and each time I would go to the doctor, I would tell them that because I could feel in my abdomen. Once they told me where they were, I could feel them. So once I could feel them, I could start. It would burn each week. I'd go every 2 weeks for a treatment. I would be there for 8 hours, and then I would wear a bag home for 48 hours to complete it. So that probably broke me down more than anything, because it's like I would get it hung on door knobs, and just because I hate, it's something you have to do. And so anyway, so we did that, and each time I would go, I would tell them that no, I feel it shrinking. They said, no, you can't feel that. I said, I'm telling you, it's shrinking. It's working. I can feel it. It burns after I get it done, and it's shrinking. And so after 4 rounds, which is 2 months, we did a scan, and that was on a Thursday, I believe it was. We did a scan. And so we was going to have to wait till Monday to find out anything. Well, of course, our minds are racing, and we're like, gosh, we can't wait till Monday. Well, that evening, I get a call from our friend, that's the nurse, that they gave her permission to call us and say, we can't believe this, but they shrunk. You're ready. And so I said, well, I told you they were going to do that, and they said, well, we've never had someone with your attitude here. I said, look, I've always been positive. I don't deal with negativity. God is in my life. He keeps me going. And this is how we're going to beat this. And so they were all ecstatic. And so I had to finish. I think I did 2 more rounds of chemo, got me through June. And then mid-July, July the 18th, the day after my wife and my daughter's birthday, I was in surgery for 11 hours. And family sat in the waiting room for 16 hours. And so came out. He came to my wife and after the surgery, and when they got in there, they found some more spots behind the bladder that they couldn't see. So they had to call in another team of surgeons that are bladder specialists to move my urethra, I can't pronounce it. And they had to move that around. And so, he told me, he said, I had everything in you laid out and put back in. So you're never going to have a normal scan again. It's all, so well, that's good to know that you laid everything out of me, but key words were that we got it all. We got it all that day. And I did it's a procedure called a HIPEC procedure, which is they do the surgery, they remove the tumors, and then when you have it in your abdomen area, they will put chemo into you and sew you back up for an hour and a half, temporary sew up, and pump you with heated chemo. And heated chemo kills the spots they can't see. So it's a very high dose of chemo. And so we did that and come out of the surgery fine. I come out, woke up, I was fine. The next day I was walking because walking is what gets your organs activated again. I had an NG tube. If anyone is aware that it's a tube goes in your nose and your stomach to keep the bile and stuff out of you while you're recovering from the surgery. It's normal of 2 or 3 days. I had mine for 12 days because my stuff would not activate. And it was pretty rough. It was pretty rough, but I was cut from my sternum all the way down to my crotch area and had 65 staples in me. But I started walking the next day. I had tubes running out everywhere. I had a catheter. I had that tube. I had drain tubes. I had 7 tubes on me, and I was walking less than 12 hours after my surgery.
Golly.
It was painful, but I said, I'm going to, whatever it takes, I will do this. We're going to get out of this. And so we did that. And I was in the hospital for 2 weeks, came home. I had a temporary alostomy bag that at the time before surgery, he didn't think we was going to have to do it. And he decided to while we were there. So he said 6 weeks and we'll get that off of him. And the nurses come in and said, he's crazy. There's 2 to 3 months minimum. There's no way it comes off in 6 weeks. Just prepare your mind for that. And I said, no, he said 6 weeks. I'm holding him to it. So we went through and did checkups. I went back at right before 6 weeks and he checked me and everything had healed enough. He said, it's coming off. So 6 weeks to the day, the colostomy came off. So that was, I admire people that have a colostomy bag or a colostomy. You can live with them. I think it's definitely a different situation you have to get used to. But again, you're living. That's the main thing. And,
right.
There's a lot of people that do that. And but I was fortunate to get off of that after 6 weeks. And from that point, I've been healing. That was in September of 18 is when that came off. We finished out some cleanup chemo through the end of the year. I think it was January the 2nd. I finished my last round of chemo at that time. Was good. Went back in April of 19 to get checked. I'd go every month and everything was showing good, showing great, nothing. And they said sometimes there was a couple of spots they were watching, but they really weren't sure if it was cancer. They said it could be scar tissue. They never really grew. So April of 19, a spot popped up on my liver, which was originally there at surgery. He determined he was not going to remove it because he didn't think it was cancerous. And no fault of his. It's just you just don't know. And there's no reason to cut into your liver if they don't know for sure. So they ended up giving me some more chemo for that. Killed that, got that out. But in the meantime, I had a spot grow on my sacrum area, which is around your sciatic nerve area. And there's a lot of nerve endings there. So that's not really a surgery point you can do. So we decided to, he said, well, that grew on you while you was on a chemo. So that means you've outgrown the chemo. So let's look for a trial. That was our next step. And again, I'll go anywhere. Well, we ended up going to, this was in October of 19. I had radiation scheduled for the sacrum area to kill the pain, basically. Radiation doesn't kill cancer. It just kills pain, basically, and controls it where it's at. Mm-hmm. So they stopped me of doing that until I could get into MD Anderson, because you got to be free and clear of any meds when you go there so they can see what they can do. So
now, where's this at?
That's in Houston. It's considered the #1 cancer facility in the world. And so December the 4th of 2019, 18, we were in Houston, met with the doctor looking for a trial. We just missed the trial that I could fit in by like a few weeks, and the trials open and close all the time. So we were kind of bummed, and he said, no worries. He said, let's get you back and get the radiation in you to kill that pain you're having. And then I was able to go on something that was it was a late phase trial that I could do here. And it was pills basically that I would take, and pills and a drip I would get every 2 weeks through my local oncologist at U of L. And so we did that for probably 4 months. And most trials are exactly what they are. They may work, they may not, and then a chemo pill or anything is nothing long-term. The goal of a trial is to find something that just knocks it out. So this trial was not working at that time. So we decided, let's look somewhere else. Well, bring in the pandemic at that point. Mm-hmm. I had an appointment scheduled in April at MD Anderson, early April of this year, and could not get in. Or I could, but I had to go down there and quarantine for 14 days before I could see them. And it was pretty rampant in Houston at that time. So we decided to not take that route. And we went back to U of L. He put me on another trial here. We tried that for a while. Wasn't working properly. Hoping we could still get in, hoping it would open back up where we could get to Houston. And it never did. It just kept getting worse and worse to go down there. So we just determined it wasn't safe to go. I did not want to get COVID with my immune system. I feel great. All my blood work's been great, but that's something I didn't want to add to the table for sure, taking a chance. And so we ended up going to, in August of this year, or last year now, 2020, we were able to get into Sarah Cannon Cancer Institute in Nashville. And through my U of L doctor, we got in there. They do a lot of research, a lot of stuff there as well. They're not tied into Vanderbilt. They're tied into Tennessee Oncology, which is pretty big as well. So we went there. They found a trial for me. Was on it through December actually, and we did a scan, and I had 2 scans. First scan, it was kind of couldn't really tell you. We needed every 60 days you get a scan, so we said we'll continue to do it. No side effects I had other than fatigue, and so we just kept going and did it again. And early December we had a scan, and it shows it was working in one area, wasn't working in another area. So he determined that time, let's move on, because the area that still had some growth was the sacrum area, which it's causing me some pain now, and we want to try to alleviate that. So at this point, I'm waiting for them. I'm supposed to get a call tomorrow, actually, on two other trials they're working on for me to get me in. So if not that, there's a chemo pill, temporary. There's still a lot of options for what I got. So I'm again, one of the key things is they've told me numerous times is I've never smoked a day in my life, and that helps tremendously. I wasn't aware how much. I knew smoking was bad for you, and I knew it could. I always just thought, well, it just affects your lungs. No, it affects your whole body, and so that's something big that I push now. And I think in the fire service, it used to be pretty rampant. A lot of people smoked back in the day. You come in the firehouse, you couldn't see, almost like you was walking in a house fire. And and I know our department has changed a lot. There's still a few, and I courageously each day talk to them about think of your health, so. But it's to each their own. But I just think of your body starts healing as soon as you quit. And that's one of the big factors for me. I think that since I didn't ever do that, other than the smoke that I inhaled in my career, it's something that helped tremendously. So staying strong is positive, and hoping for this tomorrow to get some news and ready to start. And they said they've never really seen anybody because I'll call them and where we at, what we doing? And they're like, we've never really had anybody. That's just my style. That's what I got a lot of life to live. And over these past 2.5 years, prior to the cancer diagnosis, I was I was always looking for the fire service to update our areas of concern at our department, which is, we have 5 stations, and now we're at 93 members, I believe. So, your gear, your cleaning your gear, taking care of yourself. It's not just what we breathe in on fire escort, it's what we put in our bodies. Eating as well. That's a big part of it as well. My case, colon cancer has never been in my family. Cancer is very rare in my family, and so therefore they did the genetics testing on me. There was no markers in my body that showed that I should have got this. So that tells me it's an outside source, whether it's fire related or not. I think it is. I think it's got something to do with it. And I've been a big proponent of pushing for earlier detection for firefighters. I was a big part of getting changed to 45 years old in Indiana this year. I took part in that with the state legislature and was able to help get that passed through the American Cancer Society. We were able to do that in July. Some insurance companies, now everybody should be on board. But if I would have got tested at 45, it may have been some polyps and I would have been done. Colon cancer it's a long-term growing cancer, they said. But again, it's all about when you catch it. And and I had no symptoms. That's the crazy thing. There are symptoms. There's blood in stool. There's weakness. Now that I think back, I think of the always tired, losing weight, not really trying to, and just stuff that I put off for the winter blues. I just really didn't think of much. And because I'm pretty active, always worked out and pretty active. And at that time I just didn't want to, I was just tired. And thought, man, you hit 50 and I was diagnosed in March at 49. I turned 50 in August of that year. So, it's anyone that's, I think with my diagnosis at our department and guys around that I know, including your all's department, I know some people have stepped up and got tested that may not have after I got tested, because I think when something like that hits close to home, it kind of opens up more eyes. You're
talking about colonoscopies?
Yes, colonoscopy. Yes. There are other tests. There's earlier tests you can do, which we do now every year on our physicals. We get a FIT test, which is a stool sample test, basically.
Right.
And it gives an early indication. But if you have issues, any pain or anything, colonoscopy is the only way to go. And I know it's always an insurance thing. So I think it should be younger in firefighters. I think it should be 40 or below. And it's becoming a younger disease, not just in firefighters, but in the general population as well. And, I think that's some work that needs to be done. I know I've talked with President Hannafy with the state in the past year about, once we get this pandemic stuff over, and our reps here with locally that we've got, that I think that's something we need to push for. Let's be the pioneer of this. Let's get something going that across the country will jump on and say, yeah, that's a great idea. And I think cancer awareness in general has really opened up over the past 5 years. I would say it's always been there, but I think more and more people are paying attention in the fire service for sure.
Absolutely. It's one of the things that I try to bring to my guys as much as I can, which is where you and I kind of work together. We had Dr. James Cripp come to my firehouse to give his lecture on cancer. And then you would come and give your personal story about it as well, which I think is amazing, because I think that really sets things home. You can tell people stats, you can tell people, stories and stuff. But if that firefighter, if Bruce DeArk is in front of you and he's telling you his story, it's a little personal, because of course, most of the guys over at my department too. So all that helps. I'm a big proponent of getting stuff checked. I know I turned 50 and I got my colonoscopy. And they said, see you again in 5 years. And I'm currently working with my doctor to make it like every 3 years, even though I don't have any issues.
Right.
But, there's a lot of bullets we have to dodge as firefighters. And what's funny to me is being proactive can really help your chances, going to the doctor, eating right, exercising, doing all those things. When you look back at it, what do you think was probably the biggest contributor? Was it just being around the smoke?
I think that, and I think what I put in my body over the years. I'm a big meat eater, always have been. And I think that's pretty common in not just the world, but fire service in general. We've all taken part in the monster meals that we have. And I think that weighs on your body. I really do. I don't care how much you work out. A lot of people believe you work out and you eat the steaks and it's good, but your body still has to adhere to all of that. It's got to absorb it. And I think within reason, it's fine. I just think that bacon is one of those things that I love, and I really limit myself as much as it kills me. It's that's one of the worst things you can put in your body, and
right?
For colon cancer. Yeah. And so, we have changed some habits at our stations on eating. We still have our meals, from time to time we have one, but overall there's a lot of fitness has become a big part of our department. And which I think it's huge, not only for cancer purposes, just because you can be called on at any time to do something. And if you're lazy and overweight over in the chair, it's kind of tough to do it, if you're not ready. And I think in this day and age, that's something that a lot of these younger ones are really into the fitness, which is good. It's definitely, we know it's a young man's game in the fire service for sure. And
right.
When you hit 50, not just cancer, but your whole body starts breaking down. So it's, you have aches you forgot. You didn't even know you had those areas. So I've learned about that. And, but again, we were able to purchase, we got 2 sets of gear for everyone last year, the first time we were ever able to do that. And, which is huge. As you know, you go on a fire scene, you're a mess, you clean it up, you've got a second set ready to go. And over the years, we've all used our Nomex for sweat rags or to wipe your mouth off. And that's one of the worst things that carries the carcinogens. Gets back to for the testicular cancer, you think of it, all the heat and the carcinogens will go to the areas where most of your heat, your underarms, your crotch area. Mm-hmm. So it just stays there. And you don't wash your gear. That's where a lot of the testiculars come about. So, I key on colon cancer because I know a lot about that because of myself. But again, these other cancers, please never hesitate to get blood work done. If you're feeling any kind of symptoms of anything, just don't be afraid. Blood work tells your whole story. Right. That's where they can tell where something started. So it's an easy thing to do. And we do have, like I said, we get our mandatory physicals yearly, and we used to have some guys balk that. You can't tell me what to do. And yes, we can. And, it's one of those, this is for your health. But we don't have that issue anymore. Not since me, but just in general, people have adapted to it. And early on, when we started this about 7 or 8 years ago of the mandatories, I guess maybe longer than that, 10 years ago, we had some guys found some heart issues they weren't aware they had, and had some open heart surgeries and different things that prevented some catastrophes, more or less. So
right.
I think it's more, the more we talk about, the more there is. This month in the IFF, it is Cancer Awareness Month. So they're going to be putting something out daily on statistics and different things, what you can do for the fire service, in the fire service. And, it carries on to home. Like through this COVID crisis, we've encouraged our guys to, as they're coming in, which, it's kind of goes both ways, I guess. As they come to work in the morning, wear something that you're going to wear home. Change when you get to work. So you leave, if it's a COVID issue or anything. Truthfully, that could go for carcinogens as well. You put your gear on over your uniform, but still the smoke's going to be in it. So your shoes, you know what you step in, not just any kind of disease, but the years past of when I came on early, you wore your uniform to work. You want to be proud of it, but
yes.
You've got to step back and look of your family. You've got to step back and say, when I go home, I'm wearing street clothes that I came in here on that didn't touch anything. And because you don't want to spread it at home as well. And it's easy to spread that way. We make sure our guys, their gears washed, and, we track it as far as any damage to it. Helmets, no more badge of honor, smoked up helmets. And that happens, but you get a new one. We don't need that anymore. And gloves, we never hesitate gloves, and Nomex hoods. We buy the top of the line Nomex hoods. They're expensive, but it's worth it. And,
right.
Some of the older guys think that you put the Nomex on with these, you can't feel the heat on your ears, which was always an indicator you're in too hot. But I'm sorry, I'm gonna protect myself, and we're gonna protect everybody. So, we give all the tools that we can. We got extractor machines put at each house to make sure the gear can be cleaned properly. We bought SCBA cleaners at each house, which are tremendous. And I talked to you about that, and I need to get that info to you. But they're amazing how much stuff they pull off of your mask itself. And
that sounds excellent.
Really nice. We use it for that, and then in the beginning we were using our mask for COVID runs as well, so it cleans out all of that. We do that. We had air purifier systems put in each house this year, and it's a chunk of money, but we were able to get it done, and that will help clear the air as well. So, the tools are there. It's up to everyone else to take part in it. And to help everyone, they see something, say something. They see a guy that's not washing his gear, say something.
Well, that's the thing right there. You can give all the tools in the world to a group of people, but if they don't do it, and I'll give you an example. one of the things that I see, and I've done this too, years ago, I wouldn't wear my air pack during overhaul because no one else did.
Right.
And then you get the big black boogers coming out the whole, 2-3 days after. And the more I learned about cancer, I realized, wow, that is a huge bunch of, most carcinogens in a fire are going to be after the fire's out. Right. So I try to preach and preach and preach, hey guys, wear your air packs during overhaul. And I got to be honest with you, I don't know that I've seen a huge compliance with it. But I also, like my other part of my job, I'm the training chief for our department, but I also have to do investigations from time to time. So I'll go in to investigate with an N95 mask after everything's been monitored, and and I've had firefighters more than one say, "Hey, can you get us those for overhaul?" And I'm like, "You have the highest level of respiratory protection right there next to you. Why would you not want to wear that?" Oh, it's heavy and blah blah blah. Yeah, but there's
a reason for it.
There's a reason for it. Also, okay, so maybe you're in there for less time and swap out to get somebody else in there to do some overhaul. I feel like when you hit that overhaul phase, which is the least fun phase of any fire, people just want to get it done and get back to the house, get things cleaned up. So they're willing to risk their lives to not wear that air pack so they can stay in there longer. And I see guys that wear masks, like just shot masks, and they think that this will stop cancer. And I'm like, no, it might do heavy particulates, but it's not stopping the benzene and all that. It is a tough hill to climb to convince people that. And to your point earlier, you have 2 sets of gear. Well, we have 2 sets of gear as well. So my thinking is, why not have just spend an entire day cleaning your cab? Have your clean gear on the cab. So only thing that's in the cab at any time is clean gear. You got your second set of gear somewhere stored on the fire truck. And then at a fire, you fill decon, put on your clean gear, and you're minimizing. These are just little things. But again, I think the problem is, it takes more time, more effort, and it's just not as cool, to have a smoked up helmet, have damaged gear.
Exactly.
It's a hard mindset to change, but I constantly tell my guys, and I have the same story every time. I'm like, do these things, or when you're wasting away on your deathbed and your family's around watching you, what are you going to say? Well, at least I didn't have to wear my air pack, or I had the coolest helmet ever. Sure. It's easy to think that cancer's not going to get me, especially when you're younger.
Oh, I agree.
But that's not the time to start combating it. It really isn't. And I think it boils down to, you got to have a strong department that's going to back that, enforce that, because even if the chiefs come up with a good rule, it's going to take the captains and the majors or on-scene incident commanders to enforce those rules.
Yes,
but
I agree. We have stepped up, and our administration over the past few years has really stepped up over this, and our battalion chiefs have bought in, and they understand, and the captains as well. And again, I think, unfortunately, it has to hit home for someone to really realize that. And so I'm not saying it happens on every fire overhaul, but if I'm around, I promise you it's going to happen, or they're not going to be in there. And I think overall everybody has adhered to it. They want to be healthy. They want to be around for a while. It's a culture change, and it's going to take time to get everybody involved. Trucks are it's one good thing, if you want to call it that, from COVID, is that our trucks are deconned every time they come back in. And that helps, and the fire scene as well. As you said, packs are clean. It used to be, I can remember coming in, checking a truck after a fire. There'd be so much insulation and, so much stuff on the packs that you just leave it. It's just the way it was back then. And luckily that mentality has changed, and they make sure that their stuff is clean. So that, I think you and I had talked about the new trucks being built with no air packs in the cabs.
Yeah, the clean cab.
And the clean cab. And I think that's coming, and it doesn't hurt you to take a couple more minutes, put your pack on when you get there. You're there for the solution, not to add to the problem. And
exactly. I was talking to a firefighter in Arizona, and I wish I took his name down so I could get him on this podcast, but the clean cab concept had just hit his department. And he said, and I asked him, I said, so there's so much controversy over the clean cab. What's your take on it? He goes, it takes no more time at all. He goes, it's a process you got to get used to. He said, but like you said earlier, he goes, we have clean gear and a clean cab. So when we jump up on a run, the only thing we don't have is our air pack. So when we pull on the scene, we go and we put our air pack on, and it takes the same amount of time as if you were doing it, in the truck on the way to the run or at the station. And I said, so how do your guys, what do they think about it? He said, well, they were very upset with it at first, but after you go to a couple fires, you realize it's the smallest amount of price to pay with the biggest return if you're protecting yourself from cancer. But it's just a process too. It's a process change. It's a culture change.
It is. It's kind of like 15 years or so ago when we started making seatbelts mandatory, and the excuse was always, I can't get it on because of the air pack. And so we fought that for years. And now it's a no brainer. You don't have to worry about the guys putting their seatbelts on. They wear their seatbelts. Right. It's just, it comes in time. It's right. Just, you got to continue to do it. And, there's so much information out there on as far as cancer in the fire service. And again, it's each day you can learn something new. And I'm glad the IFF is doing that this month. I think that helps to get the word out more. And it shows that it's getting more notice. The news media is doing a lot more stories on it. I did every news channel we have here. I did the story on it, and I didn't do it for me. I'm not about a person to get out in the spotlight. I wanted it out for people to see that, hey, this can happen to you. And I started along with James, Dr. Cripps, and then myself, just talking to other departments on just a little 20-minute presentation on your gear and on just different things to show that, and you can, it's a mindset as well. Like me, stage 4 cancer, some people hear that term, they just give up. Well, I'm going to be around a long time. And I'm going to show that I don't listen to percentages for that. That's just not me. I don't, not that they've said that this is it, they haven't said that, but even if they did, I wouldn't pay attention. I would go somewhere that didn't tell me that. And, and cause I'm going to fight this tooth and nail. And, I got a few more years left on the job before I will retire. And, so I want to enjoy my life. I want to enjoy my retirement. I want to see my kids I want to have grandkids someday, not right now, get them through school, and then we'll do that. So I've got a lot of life to live. And if I can pass that on to someone as well, I've had some calls from guys from actually police and fire locally. And then I've got a call as far away as, I think it was Washington State, of a chief out there that had the same thing that I did. He was a stage 2. And this was early on in my diagnosis. And we talked for a while, and I know there's groups out there, but it would be nice to have, I know there's a local group I believe police officers have in Louisville of police officers who have had cancer over the years, and they get together and they talk and share stories. And I'd kind of like to do that in this area with firefighters. Right. And I know there are groups that do that. And, but maybe it's something we start with our local guys, just say, hey, because you never know what you're feeling, if it's correct or not, because it's I'm in another group. It's called the Colon Cancer Project out of Louisville, and I've been a member of them for quite a while, and they're great. I mean, they help do a lot of stuff, and they're actually who backed Dr. Cripps on getting him the money to go out and do this training. And Colon Cancer Prevention Project, I got to say it right, but they they're big of getting the word out, and they told me, you find departments you want to go to. They're mainly in Kentucky and Southern Indiana, but they will back me anywhere I want to go to talk, So I've done that. When I got a guy in Atlanta, I've got a call back that has called recently that's working on their legislation. And I think that's part of what I'm here for now, is to help spread the word. And not that I'm somebody who can just get anything changed, but I speak from the heart. And I want all of our members to be alive. I don't want this terrible disease to affect anyone if there's a way to prevent it. And again, I hate to say prevent, I guess it's minimize, because I don't think you can ever prevent it.
Right. And like we said earlier, there's a lot we can do to help prevent this. Wear air packs and overhaul, wash our gear, wash our SCBAs, wash our cabs.
Yes.
Don't wear gear in the firehouse, eat better, work out. I mean, these are all things that really are not difficult. We're not climbing Mount Everest. We're just taking some time away from the couch, away from the TV, maybe even away from training, to make sure that we stay safe.
Health. I early on, I researched, and I did some locally, the infrared saunas that will remove toxins from your body. And they were pushing those at FDIC. Like a year prior to me getting diagnosed, I actually talked to the guy. I was just curious about him. And I found somewhere local that I can do that along with oxygen therapy, high oxygen therapy. I did that as well while I was going through my treatments. Helped me tremendously. And but the infrared sauna was something that was kind of strange. This was 2 days prior to my surgery. I was on that morning. We had 3 structure fires, and I was on the scene of all 3 of them. and not really in the mix, but I was still around, could smell the smoke. And that afternoon I had a treatment scheduled. So I said, well, the sauna was open. I said, let me try this. First time I'd ever tried it. And it's a different heat than your hot rock sauna. It's like at the YMCA or something. It's just a different feel. And so I go in it and they give you white towels because you're going to sweat a lot. You drink water while you're in there. And so I did this for 20 minutes max was all I could do it. And it was just that hot. And but the towel, I would wipe the sweat. And when I come out, she's like, you've been around fire in the past few days. I said, yeah, 3 this morning. She said, look at your towel. It was black that come out of the skin. And
oh my goodness.
So, and it was a tint to it. It wasn't just completely black, but still I could tell it was coming out of my skin. And she said, this is what this will do. And so we looked into purchasing some of those saunas actually. And of course the pandemic hit and but that's still on our back burner. I think the IAFF has looked at it, and I think they're not all sold on it all the way yet. I think there's different studies out there. It's just, I've talked Indy. I think Indy has a couple of stations with a couple of them. And there's a lot of them. It's getting big out west. It's more research, definitely worth looking at for departments. And if anybody that hears this knows anything about them, I'd love to hear, that have them. I'd love to know, have some information on them to see if
I'll put your
they are working.
I'll put your email address in the description of the podcast. And of course, if anybody has that information, get to you with that.
Any kind of information they want to pass on or questions, yeah, please do. Ask me, because I love to go talk within driving distance. I'll go talk to any department. And
then, of course, anything that you find out that you want to share, please let me know. Sure. And I'll put up on my Twitter and then also my Facebook. Now, one of the things I've told people in the past, when sometimes there's some hard-headed people out there when it comes to cleaning gear and all that stuff.
Yes.
And I issue a challenge to them. And I've had a couple people take me up on this. I'm like, clean your SCBA as good as you can. Give it extra. I don't care.
Right.
Take that SCBA and stick it into a big tub of water and let it sit for about 6 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Take a drink of that water if you want to, because it's going to be dark. Right. No matter how well you clean it, you can always clean it better. I have seen SCBA cleaners now, machines that clean SCBAs that you can put in the firehouse. And you've talked about the mask ones and stuff. My point is, it's all academic till the rubber meets the road. Stick your helmet in a tub of water.
Sure.
Tell me if you're going to drink that water. No. And people are going to say, absolutely not. It's cancer. Well, wearing it's not much different.
No, exactly. And you think back, some departments just don't have funding to buy that stuff. And
absolutely.
But you go back to, our early days, we did the buckets. We did the 5 buckets. You would dip them in your SCBA mask, and then you would air dry. You'd wipe them down.
Right.
It's better than nothing. You have to start somewhere. And
sure,
because I understand a lot of departments don't have funding to do that stuff. And this COVID may hit departments harder here in the next couple of years. But anything you can do to clean, like you said, it's better than doing nothing at all, for sure.
I got a friend of mine that issued decon buckets for every truck. It had soap, brushes, garbage bags, wipes, so they could clean their gear on the scene, tie them up in a garbage bag, throw them on top of the truck, and then go back. And he was telling me, this was a couple of weeks ago, he's telling me that this has been on the rigs for a couple of years, and not one person has asked for a refill. So he's interpreting that as they're just not doing it. So that's unfortunate, because you know better than anybody that not only are you doing the right stuff now, you'd give anything to go back in time and do the right stuff then.
Exactly.
And you're that's the message you're trying to get across, is don't wait till you're a cautionary tale. Don't wait till because most people aren't going to be a Bruce DeArk. They're not going to take this information, this diagnosis, and make it an opportunity, like you have.
Everybody's different. It's always been my theory. If I can help someone, I'm going to do that. And as far as the decon on scene, we put those on the trucks a couple of years ago. And at first it was a kind of, like you said, kind of a pushback, but it's not now. I mean, you go on a scene, you see it. I mean, they are real. And again, when it hits home, I think, because I think out of our department, that first month or two after I was diagnosed, at least 15 guys went and got their colonoscopies. They were over the age that should have already had it. And so I think it opened up a lot of eyes, and some of them had polyps that would go into it if they hadn't went when they did. So, it was, if I have to be the guinea pig for that, it happened. I don't want to be that guinea pig, but if it can help someone else to realize that, then I'm glad that's some good to come out of that, I think. So what we've found is that comes with a little packet for the SCBA cleaner, the mask cleaners. It's a little packet of a cleaner that goes in, that's what cleans your mask. Well, we found that we open those up and use those to clean the air packs better than anything I've ever used. It's crazy how clean they come. So they don't sell them in big packs. And I was telling our supplier that, so they were going to research that to see. I said, man, that's something you might want to push, for that, because that's a big part of, like you said, you're wearing it. You don't want to drink the water, but you're wearing it. What's the difference? It's on you. So that's just more stuff that I think, and again, it's stuff you learn trial and error. You learn that whatever it takes, it works.
Yes.
That's the goal in my life.
Absolutely, brother. You're a real inspiration. You got such a positive attitude. You're helping others with this. There's no doubt you're going to, kick this in its ass. No problem there.
Yes.
I would like for you to any information you get, please let me know so
sure.
I can pass on.
I will.
I'd like to have you back on the podcast later on. Give me an update.
Sure.
See what hopefully after this COVID thing dies down and
yes,
get some more information on these trials, we'll get them out to the brothers and sisters out there so they don't have to go through this themselves.
Yeah, I'm hoping, like you said, I get my second shot this week. I'm looking forward to that for the COVID shot, and so I can get. Of course, I'm still going to be careful, but I'll be able to do a little bit more because I've done some Zoom meetings with some departments on some talks, but I'd rather do it in person. When I do that, it's just more personable, I think, when you do that. And so I've got some lined up. Hopefully by midsummer, I can get back on track on doing that. And once I figure out my trial plan here, this treatment plan coming up, that's it's just part of it. I know that's part of our life, and I just live it to the fullest each day. I don't worry about it. It doesn't do any good. It's out of my hands, in God's hands. It's just, I just live it every day. And I know the right one's there. We just haven't found it yet. So my body's stubborn, I guess. So it will be there, and we will get there for sure. But no, I will definitely, anything I get, I will feed to you. And if anyone has any questions about anything I've talked about, or just general question, if they get diagnosed early and want to talk, and it's not always easy to talk to people. I understand when you're diagnosed. There was a few people that reached out to me of people that they knew, of firefighters that they knew that had gotten some cancer, and hey, would you mind talking to them? Sure, here's my number. They never call. And I understand it's not always easy to talk to someone about it, but I'm different. I like to talk about it. I think if you get it out there, it's better. It's not about talking about me, it's not about that. It's about, this is what worked for me during this treatment plan, or this is what you're going to get. This is how you're going to feel. Everybody's different, but it's pretty general that you will be sick, and, but it's how you handle it, and it's not knocking anybody that gets deathly sick with it. It's just, it's your body, how your body reacts to it, and your attitude. I think your attitude is 90% of it. I really do. And so anything I can do to help, I'm glad to do that.
Brother, I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for being on my podcast.
All right, no problem.